Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jameson Maxwell, and Jameson, it is a special show. We are going to be reacting live to the college football playoff selection show here as we find out where and who the Oklahoma Sooners will be playing in round one. Jameson, feels like it's been a long time since we've been able to talk about the Sooners in a playoff situation. But that wait is over. How excited are you about everything?
It still doesn't feel real. And honestly, the excitement that I feel like I would have gotten from this moment, I don't know why, but it just doesn't feel there. But I think whenever I see Oklahoma's logo come up as 8 and realize that there is a home game, the week leading up to that home game is going to be electric. Like, that's something that Norman has never seen in the history of their college football program. And I think it's going to be so much fun in a high pressure environment for everyone to watch that.
Oh, absolutely. And the results yesterday, everything played out exactly how it should for OU to host a home game. The round one, it went perfect. You know, Georgia won. You know, Texas Tech won. The chalk that we all kind of wanted, but I think the back of your head, you're just expecting something bad to happen. Nothing bad happened, and here we are. You know, moments away from finding out. If OU's hosting, and I feel pretty damn good about it. So,
And the reality of it is, if Alabama won and they jumped OU and OU wasn't playing at home, like, the person that could have been at 7, I mean, if that was Ole Miss or Texas A&M, like, still pretty hopeful. I mean, like, to be completely frank with you, like, not talking about home versus away, I'd rather play those two teams than play Notre Dame. Notre Dame scares me. But I think you always pick playing at home, because our home crowd in December has been a lot of fun. And I think that they will really show up for a playoff game.
absolutely. I mean, it really would be poised to be one of the biggest nights, OU's ever had, or days, or whenever they're going to play it. I think, one, because of the stakes. You know, we've never had a situation where you've had postseason play, and two, because of the likely teams that would be playing OU. It would be two kind of traditional foes that have screwed OU in the past. Notre Dame, of course, notably, ended this, Wilkinson's 47 game winning streak. There are still people. I have talked to several people in the past couple of weeks with Thanksgiving and all this, who were live, like, either they're watching on TV, on the radio, or in person for that game. And the amount of hate that still resonates with Notre Dame, it's one of those things that, maybe some people outside of the OU bubble don't really get, but it's still there. And there's still a lot of beef with Notre Dame throughout the years. And then Miami in the 80s completely tortured, those Barry Switzer teams. OU would have more national titles if it wasn't for the Jimmy Johnson era Miami teams. So there's beef there as well. So I think, just in terms of the history aspect of it all, there's some excitement there. But I think both matchups are exciting as well.
Yeah, Bobby, you don't even mention the Manti Te'o game. The James Harden trade day, like the worst day and one of the worst days in Oklahoma sports history. For our generation, that is the reason why I hate Notre Dame, just because, the respect for Manti and how well he played, but it's just like, we just got clobbered after being so excited for having game day in Norman, and just then absolute dagger to the chest to realize our 6-man is gone in the Oklahoma City Thunder. So
Yeah.
that's the game that scares me the most.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. That is, I've long said that's the worst day in Oklahoma sports history. You kind of had your playoff hopes, or the championship hopes crushed, and you got the Harden trade midway through. And keep in mind, you were actually the one who let me know about the Harden trade via telling me Cole Aldrich was traded. I was like, oh no, I love Cole Aldrich. And they're like, yeah, James Harden too. I'm like, what? So
that's a great lead up.
Yeah, vivid memories from that was one of our better days until it wasn't, because that was a fun game day. We were in high school, great times. But yeah, definitely some real beef there. So again, we're watching a lot along here. We don't know when the actual reveal will happen, because you know how these things are. They take forever. We have to hear Curb Street and everyone yak about everything. So we'll be reacting along live with y'all. Just kind of a second screen experience here. So as we're talking about the playoff, any results that particularly stood out to you yesterday, Jameson?
I mean, I think something that really was known, but we kind of just brushed to the side was just Alabama's offense did look sus, especially with the run game. And the run game continued to be anemic with the Georgia's defense really coming to a hole. Like we say, Alabama's offense with Ty Simpson at the helm and their wide receiver core can go and do anything. But whenever you're one dimensional and you get down to postseason, we say this a lot in basketball, but the same is for football. You cannot have a weakness or a one dimension to your offense or to any of your play because teams will take advantage of that. If they see Alabama continues to not being able to run, whoever their opponent is in this playoffs is absolutely going to scheme that, force them to run, get them in bad positions. And I think that's a big reason why Oklahoma won the game in Tuscaloosa because they did that same exact thing. And I think the formula's out on Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. And I think it really shows why, with all due respect to Pate, his take on, oh, Alabama doesn't need to run the ball. They know they don't run the ball. Like, this isn't going to matter. It totally matters being one dimensional. And you saw it. They got completely dominated on the ground. And, there's a reason why they have 3 losses. And it's because of that. Any concern about Alabama getting left out of this thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just heard Nick Saban in my ear talk bad about Oklahoma. I think he's trying to push a freaking narrative right now. Screw you, Nick Saban. Don't do that. But
literally like an active, not active employee of the University of Alabama, but he has an office there. So
Alabama and Oklahoma should get in, buddy. Come on. You don't need to be throwing strays. But I think this Alabama team, I really thought that after the loss versus Florida State, it could have just been a blip and they kind of rebounded really well. Now I'm looking at them in the postseason. This was a team where I looked at them, I was like, you know what? I saw them at like 16-1 odds for championship odds. I was like, I think that's the best value of the field. Now I'm like, I'm staying far away from Alabama.
Yeah, no, they just don't have it this year. I don't think they're not very balanced. When they kind of run up against it, they just don't. I don't know. They're not dynamic enough. And I think you could, like you said, the recipe's out there. And I think there are some teams with some really good defenses that can stop them, down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's any way they don't get in. I think the biggest thing is if an SEC team loses a playoff spot because they played a conference championship game, I mean, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, and they got moved up to the 9 spot just for the fact that the playoff committee will say, oh, they didn't do well enough, so we pumped them down to 10. And they're like, oh, good job, committee. You really reprimanded Alabama.
They gave them a little buffer, pretty much.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not concerned about them, but obviously we'll see. I think another big game that I think really stood out. I'm not going to really talk as much about the Ohio State-Indiana game. I think those are just 2 really tough football teams and a tough football game. I think, like, we just really need to put more respect on Texas Tech. I think that whenever we talked about it last week, me and you and the boys, we were like, you know what? I think BYU's got a lot to play for here. I don't care what they look like in the regular season versus them. Like, they can go out and show out. This Texas Tech defense is really, really damn good. And we can say, oh, Big 12 is not that legitimate and say like, oh, they're not going to be able to play with the big dogs in the SEC and the Big 10. But we've seen it with teams across the country, especially with Oklahoma. If you got a really damn good defense with some playmakers there, like you can go out and you can win any game. So I'm not predicting Texas Tech to win the college football playoff, but I think if you put Texas Tech and if they got either 3 of the 4 and they got matched up with, say if they were the 4, Bobby, and the 5 seed would be Oregon, I think that Texas Tech could very easily beat this Oregon team.
Yeah, no, I think it's time we start to really respect Texas Tech. And if you aren't by now, then I feel like when you talk about teams that can't play with the big dogs, Texas Tech is built like an SEC team. They are built like a really good Big 10 team. They're built and that's why they've just steamrolled the Big 12. It's because they're built in a way that is designed to compete. The athletes they have over there, the size, it's not similar to the rest of the conference. And that's why they've performed as well as they have. And that's why I think they'll perform pretty well in the college football playoff. And yeah, no, I think they can definitely take Oregon in a neutral site game, wherever that may be. And I'm with you. I don't think they're like a contender to win it all, but they can make a run. They can definitely make things spicy for sure. They are legitimate and should be definitely respected.
Mm-hmm.
Overlook them at your own peril.
Yeah. Are you interested, I guess would be a nice word for this, in either of these mid-major teams as a possible upset candidate in the playoffs?
I mean, it depends. I feel like it depends on who Tulane plays. If it's Ole Miss again, I mean, it's one of those things where, I know we've talked about the whole hard to beat the same team twice thing, but I think that adds a bit of a weird wrinkle to it, especially given, the whole, Lane Kiffin situation. I feel like they would probably have as much, more of a shot at, kind of, turning some tables, making things
Yep.
interesting. I don't really feel that with James Madison, regardless.
No.
No, I don't see James Madison any path for them. And, I don't think there's any, by the way, no chance Duke gets in, right? Like we don't even need to really discuss that, right?
There is a small sliver of my being that thinks it's a chance just for the PR of it. If you're going to enrage someone, enrage the Sun Belt Conference and not the ACC. But I think no matter what happens today, Bobby, people are going to get pissed off, and that's just business at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's the core of it. There's no perfect solution. There's not going to be a playoff field that is going to work for everybody. Someone's going to get upset. Someone's going to try to flip the table over, and I'm intrigued. Someone's going to, they're going to have to change this thing up a little bit. I think it's jarring to see two group of 5 teams in that, frankly, whenever you see a group of 5 team in these sort of runs, usually you're like, oh, it's Boise. They have a magical team with Ashton Genty, or, they're just, a good team. Both of these G5 teams aren't particularly great. They're fine, but they're not, I don't think they're playoff field worthy. They're usually these kind of dogs have to, be exceptional. And I feel like they're both kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
And JMU did not look good against Troy, by the way.
Yeah, they didn't. But I will say before that Troy game, like giving a little respect to JMU, their only loss being to Louisville at Louisville, and Louisville had to score 22 unanswered to get that game and win it. Like they're up 14-6 in the third quarter. JMU was. So
Yeah.
I mean, I was glued on that game because that was a wild card pick for me, and I picked Louisville.
I remember it. I remember it well.
And so, and there was like a 13.5 point spread. But I think this JMU team at least like played well enough to get into consideration. The problem is the Sun Belt this year was just not it. Like, which is I think a big hamper for them. Usually the Sun Belt has a couple of teams that they can kind of toy with that can be competitive. Like you'll see a Troy every once in a while, an Appalachian State, a Texas State. But none of those teams this year could really give any kind of JMU some credibility with their strength of schedule. So really now we're all just playing kind of, like scenarios. Oh, they could have beaten Louisville if it wasn't for the last 22-25 minutes of that game, but you can't play that game. You can't play that.
No. And I think too, it's just one of those things. If you want to talk about a conference that has been kind of gutted by the transfer portal and, these eras of, having coaches leave quick, the Sun Belt has just been devastated in the past couple of years. I feel like it's kind of been picked clean. I mean, if anyone knows that, it's JMU, who's seeing their old coach and alumni in the number 1 seed in the country, over at Indiana with Coach Sig and a lot of their players really.
Mm-hmm.
The Indiana like kind of, I don't want to say dynasty because they're just they're not a dynasty. They haven't really won anything yet. But this juggernaut of an Indiana team exists because of James Madison, imported directly to Bloomington. Yeah, and I will say, speaking of, were you surprised to see how Indiana won that game?
No. If they were going to win that game, it was going to be like that. They were going to make it ugly. I think that Indiana this year has played some really high scoring games, but versus top notch opponents like Oregon, I kind of played like, how did they beat Oregon? That was, even though it was a higher scoring game than this, it was still kind of an ugly, scrappy game. And I think Indiana's defense, you really got to give them credit. You got to give them their roses. I think that a lot of people are going to continue to talk like, oh, Fernando Mendoza had his Heisman second moment after the little comeback, play. No, that's not the case. It's this Indiana defense. They won the game. They should be the talking point. We should just throw away this Heisman and stop talking about it because it's trash to begin with.
It's just one of those things where nobody knows who to pick. So they're like, who's the best team? Indiana? Cool. Let's just give it to their quarterback.
I hate that. I picked Jeremiah Love. He's the most talented player.
Who would you give the Heisman to? Who do you think's the best player in college football?
Best player in college football is Jeremiah Love. Best statistical player, I don't care. But I think he's the most talented player in college football. So I'd vote for Jeremiah Love just because I think that giving it to Sayan and Mendoza is just almost embarrassing, in my opinion. So
yeah. No, I think that's fair. I will say the thing with Love that's tricky is the first real impression we had of him this year was getting completely shut out of that Miami game to start.
That's true.
Which, when I can kind of see where people are coming from with how different those two teams are, because that Notre Dame team was pretty unrecognizable from the team before, like the year before. They're unrecognizable from the team they have now. But at the same time, like head to head has to be like the gold standard of any team comparison, especially when the resumes are similar. So where do you land at on the Miami Notre Dame like kind of kerfuffle here?
It's head to head. I think Miami should get it over Notre Dame. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't say that head to heads means the most to you and then say, oh, we'll consider head to heads if they're neighbors and rankings, and then purposefully make them 2 spots away from each other just so you cannot use that. And you can say the eye test of Notre Dame looks better. When the eye test of Notre Dame at the the second half of the season, they've been playing just garbage other than USC. Like, I just don't think that's right. That's just a narrative that I just don't think that they're pushing well. And I don't care if Miami is kind of made like this uncomfortable taste in your mouth, and maybe the Carson Beck, maybe the stigma that you have against him from the past years is still there. I think Miami has every reason to be in this playoff over the Notre Dame if they do so choose that.
Yeah. And I know Miami's losses aren't fantastic, but they're to me, it's not. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter if you're directly right next to each other. And Notre Dame, the only ones they have to blame are themselves. When you lose 2 losses, when you have 2 losses, you lose that kind of ability to, your margin of error. And granted, if it was literally any other 2-loss team, they probably should have the edge over it. But it's the 1-2-loss team you can't be next to is the one you lost to. Yeah. And that's the breaks.
And I think the narrative of Miami's losses aren't like the best losses. I don't think so. There's no egregious like Florida loss like Texas. I think SMU on the road is going to be a hard game. SMU's a team that's been hot and cold, but they've got a really good offense, and it's on the right day they could beat Miami. And it was an overtime loss. And the second was a Louisville team that game looked really bad, but Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions in that game. And I don't think that's been the most mainstay of him this year, but in the past years, yes. And people just completely dogged him for that. And they still only lost by 3 whenever they threw 4 interceptions, which I think says a lot about that defense too.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's, when you want to talk about the eye test, how they look, when they're on, they're really, really good, but you just can't drop those games. It's unacceptable. And, on Miami's end, if you just take care of business, you're in a totally different situation. You're in the ACC championship. You're fine. But I don't know. It's going to be a really tough deal that I think that's going to be the core that shakes all of this up is what happens to the ACC. Because I think they're going to get pretty screwed over here.
ACC is already broken, obviously, from a couple years ago and being left out of Florida State. And now if it ends up happening that they get spurned again, which I don't think they will, I think that sometimes you just need to take it on the chin whenever you had a bad year. But I think that they will change the narrative, and it will create a really, really bad, like dramatic fall of the CFP this offseason.
Yeah, there's going to be some drama with it, and it's going to be interesting.
And I hate it.
Shakes out. I hate it too.
So entitled, man. Like, you guys played bad. Y'all don't deserve anything. Like, the idea that they deserve something is ridiculous. Like, that is just like people nowadays just think that they just show up and they deserve to get whatever they want. That's what ACC feels like right now. You went out there and gave us crap for the whole year. All of your teams that you thought were going to be good were not. And now all of a sudden you're like, yeah, Yeah, I think we deserve it just because look what Miami did. Miami didn't even make your championship, so get out of town.
Yeah. No, it's a problem of their own making. They overinflated their entire conference, just filled it with a bunch of garbage, and this is where they're at. That's just kind of part of it. And the ACC should reevaluate how they handle their champions. So just because that's how do you let Duke? How do you let 5-loss Duke in? That's awful. That's awful.
No more automatic bids.
Yeah, the auto either no more automatic bids or you have to have criteria on it. Like you have to be. I remember in the old BCS it was like you have to be top 15 to get like. It's like if you're a conference champion and ranked at some point, you're in. All right, so here we go with the playoffs.
Yep.
We're announcing number 1 Indiana. No surprise to anybody.
Yeah, and they're gonna likely be in the Rose Bowl in that quarterfinals game. So the 8-9 matchup, right?
So not likely. They will be in the Rose Bowl due to the Big Ten tie-in.
Yes.
Conference championship bowl tie-ins still count in this sense.
So 8-9 matchup, Rose Bowl. If we're Oklahoma fans playing Indiana, that would be pretty damn cool. And if it's Notre Dame who wins that game, still a pretty cool matchup either way.
Oh well, then it would be an in-state rivalry in the Rose Bowl. I mean that's huge for the Hoosiers, regardless. When you're in Big Ten country, the Rose Bowl is the gold standard. Number 2, Ohio State.
I don't know if I like that.
I disagree with that. I know that they played it close.
To deserve it.
I know that they played it close, but the thing is, Georgia beat every team on their schedule. Obviously you lose to Alabama, but you got to avenge it. The Dogs are playing as hot as anybody in the country. They played a tough schedule. I would have put them too, but
yeah, and they looked really damn good in the conference championship game. Ohio State didn't, and I think recency bias should matter a lot here whenever we make rankings because legitimately that is a barometer of how they're doing right now. And so if you can tell me Ohio State looked better in their championship game than Georgia, I would not believe you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Yeah, they're saying it makes a lot of sense to have them at 2 is what they're saying right now. What? Okay. I mean, but at the same time, 2 versus 3, splitting hairs really doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Especially given neutral site, like it doesn't matter,
yeah, because I mean, so Georgia at 3, Ohio State would play the winner of the 7-10 matchup. Which maybe Ohio State would play the winner of the 7-10 matchup as the 2, which I mean versus the winner of the 6-11 matchup, and I doubt that the 6 would lose to the 11. That the way that it looks right now, so I mean I think that's going to be pretty equivalent of the 2 versus the 3.
Yeah,
but if with Tulane hits an upset, Bobby, now that is a huge deal of the 2 versus 3.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, getting an accidental Tulane in there, but
and it's just like Ohio State just gets to walk their way to the semis if that happens.
Oh boy,
I know. And
after the road they had last year,
man, that does kind of piss me off because at first I said no, it doesn't matter, but then there's a scenario. But yeah, Texas Tech at 4. Look at that graphic, Bobby. You had it ready.
Yep. So there's our top 4. The buys: Indiana. Number 1, Ohio State 2, 3 Georgia, 4 Texas Tech. The Red Raiders getting a bye here. Now, I want to know, this is going to be interesting. So Indiana, we know for a fact they're going to the Rose Bowl. Georgia, for a fact, is going to be playing in the Sugar Bowl as the SEC champion. Where's Ohio State going to pick? Because your other 2 options are the Orange Bowl in Miami or the Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl.
You probably go Cotton. But if you end up in a situation where you're playing either Alabama or let's say Alabama or A&M, do you want to pick the Cotton Bowl and give A&M a home game?
Hell no.
But also you could go with the Orange Bowl and kind of prevent that. And if you go with the Orange Bowl, then Texas Tech would get the Cotton Bowl home game there. Number 5, Oregon. A shock to nobody.
Now it starts to get to where the 6, will they try to shake up from last rankings or not? I don't think they will, but I think that if things we can see it get dirty here and starting at 6.
Yeah, this is where if Ole Miss were to fall or something weird to happen with Ole Miss, this is where that would be.
They'd be like, why did they even move them up to begin with?
Yeah, because I know in the past they've been like, well, we considered everything on the last day. So this is where it's going to get interesting. I feel like is the 6th.
Yeah, and then it
So,
makes me think, like, if they're not even considering, all of the things during the rankings before the last day, why are we even releasing them?
why are we TV money? It's really it. But
Yeah, but it just pisses people off, and I tried my hardest this year, Bobby, not to be that person. I usually every single time, you're like, Bobby goes, "Let's talk about the CFP rankings." I'm like, "No."
all
All right,
right, number
there's
6,
our
Ole
answer.
Miss. Ole
So
Miss
Ole
does not
Miss getting
move.
in the little gateway to go and play Georgia. So possible SEC matchups there,
Yeah, a possible rematch of that game in Athens
which was
went down to the
electric.
wire.
That was
Yeah, and
so
this
fun, and that's the game where I really said, I really like Trinidad Chambliss a lot, but, like, I believe in him so much now because of what he did versus Georgia.
Yep, and that game would be going down in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. So number 7, you have to expect Texas A&M here.
Yeah.
There's no way OU's going to jump them. I would
Mhm.
be shocked at that point. It would
No,
make no
no,
sense. It'd make no
no, we
sense.
we have a common loss of Texas. Yep, there's
Yeah,
Texas A&M.
and yet there are the Texas A&M Aggies at 7 hosting a game at Kyle Field against a 10 seed. So
Do you think Texas A&M, though, has a better chance of beating Ohio State than an Ole Miss?
that's a great question. I like Ole Miss, but there, I think
Yeah.
it's tricky because I don't know how different the team's going to be. With the coaching staff flipped. You know,
Mm.
but if we just go by what we saw on the field, yeah. All
On
right,
the
here's
field,
number
I
8.
like this Ole Miss team better than Texas A&M, I agree.
Here comes number 8. Will the Sooners host?
Mhm. All right, let's just have awkward silence on the pod so we can see
Moment
the
of
8.
truth. There it is.
There we go.
The
Boom.
Oklahoma Sooners, 8 seed, hosting a college football playoff game in Norman, Oklahoma. Beautiful,
Love that.
man. Oh, get your tailgates ready, folks. We're going to be tailgating in late December. Oh my God.
And now we decide if we wait for a Friday or a Saturday. Oh man. Friday tailgate could be a little bit wild. Could be a little bit funky.
We've done it before. We did it with Temple last year. And who are
Mhm.
they playing? All right. Who are the Oklahoma Sooners going to play? Who are they
They're
welcoming to
they're gonna
Norman?
absolutely do, like, a little dramatic pause here, Bobby.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go. Yep,
You're
yep.
right,
They
James.
have to wait for the dramatic pause. We all know it because this number 9 is the one that's gonna mean the most.
And I'm pretty pumped about
I'd
this.
say 70% sure it's Notre Dame.
I think it's Notre Dame.
I
I think there's no way Alabama's here.
But
I think
there's a
it's
chance the way that they did Ohio State. I thought that Georgia would go over them. They didn't
yeah.
really put a lot of weight into that. They could put Alabama. I really do not want to see Alabama here. I want to see Notre Dame.
Oh no.
It's Alabama.
Oh, that's oh my God. That's awful. That is awful. OU hosting Alabama.
What? I mean, this is okay, Bobby. This offense looked completely anemic. Their momentum is extremely poor.
No,
And,
I know. I
then
know.
they're going against one of the better defenses in the country. And this Notre Dame team is electric, and their offense might be so good that we couldn't even keep up with them with our defense. This might still be a good thing for Sooner fans.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's. I think there are multiple things to it because I mean, yeah, you look at how Alabama's played, and how they played against OU earlier. I think I just really don't like the idea of a rematch. I
Yeah,
don't like the
I wanted
idea
to see a
of.
new shiny
I
toy.
don't like the idea of a rematch in general in these playoffs.
So
Is
they keep Alabama at 9. So the head to head here, Notre Dame, Miami.
yeah. So you have to imagine it's Miami at 10.
I don't know, Bobby. The way that this ranking went, I just disagree with it so far. So my values, I don't know if I can superimpose on the committee.
I'm just surprised they went with a rematch aspect of it. It just
They're not gonna let Alabama go down at all. I don't care they were in a SEC championship, but you can't just say that doesn't matter. That game doesn't matter what they played versus Georgia. They didn't score in the first 3 quarters.
they were horrible. The Alabama was awful in that game. It just doesn't. I don't know. I feel like you have to have some sort of an impact. You don't drop them out entirely. I understand that. Miami,
Miami.
wow. Miami makes the
Good
jump.
for them.
Good for
Good for
Miami.
the committee for doing that. Because
They
I
did
know
the
that
right
that
thing.
wasn't an easy decision based off what they did, but head-to-head matters.
It does. They did the right thing there, without a doubt. That's the right thing. Miami heading to Kyle Field to take on the Texas A&M Aggies.
Do you wanna play a little conspiracy theory here, Bobby?
Sure, what's it?
I think that if Virginia would have won the ACC championship, you would have saw Notre Dame at 9.
I think
Because
you're right.
I think that they wanted an ACC team in no matter what, but Duke won, and they're not gonna put Duke in. So they had to put Miami in, and then they said, "You know what? We can't put Miami in unless Alabama's at 9 and we have the head-to-head of Miami versus Notre Dame at neighbors in the rankings."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think
It
you.
has nothing to do with just actually who deserves to be in. I think it's all just politicking with that.
Yeah. It's we can't leave out the ACC, but we can leave out this one random team who doesn't have a conference. And sure, you piss off Notre Dame. That's still one. It's one school.
Mhm.
You know, I know they have the money, they have NBC, all of that, but you know, at the end of the day, if you want to talk about politics, it would have broken the sport to completely leave the conference out of it.
Yeah, but I would have put Miami in, like, over Alabama.
Yeah,
But
it's the right
once
move.
again, it's that stupid little statement they said about neighbors of, like, being next to each other with the head-to-head. Like, they won't
Yeah.
consider unless they're next to each other, which is just such stupidity.
What the real rottenness is, though, is that Alabama team getting in over Notre Dame. That doesn't feel right.
No,
And I know that
still think
sounds
Alabama
clippable.
needs
I
to
know
be
that's
in, but
clippable. I don't care.
no, I
It's just a
disagree with
fact.
you on that one. I think Alabama deserved to be in no matter what. Like, they've gotta win versus Georgia, and they lost to them, but they're 1-1 versus them, and I don't think that we can damn them that hard.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. I
Hmm.
think conference championship games really muddy it a little bit because I don't really know why we play them if you can't. If you win the game, it doesn't really. It didn't do anything for Ohio State or Indiana. It didn't do anything for Georgia winning it. It didn't do anything for Alabama. You know, they received no negative connotation for it. It just. So why are we doing it? What's the
Yeah,
point?
and I like, what is a world like how we can still do it, but at the same time provide legitimacy to the playoff? It's gonna get hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. At that point, I don't know. All
Tulane
right,
going and
Tulane in
playing
at
Ole Miss
11.
again. The same. We got some rematches here.
Yeah, which that annoys me. I don't like having 2 rematches in the first round.
Mhm.
I know you kind of had to at that point. I'm surprised the committee didn't go out of their way to prevent it because I
Put
feel like
JMU at 11.
they're going to. Or honestly, you would just reshuffle A&M and Ole Miss. You know, that would be the easiest way to do that.
Yeah,
Have Tulane go to Kyle Field.
and I think A&M deserves to be at 6 over Ole Miss, in my opinion, for the rankings, because they take into account all the coaching stuff. They say that. They take into account the extracurriculars. So I just don't see why Ole Miss deserves to be over Texas A&M with that, because they're pretty
Yeah,
similar beyond that.
there it is. James Madison, the Dukes at 12. I feel like this was a lock the second you saw Miami.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
they essentially just called Miami the ACC champion.
Mhm. Good for
Well,
JMU. I'm happy for them. Shout out Virginia schools. But I think that this is just such a weird year for the
yeah,
playoffs.
not an ideal bracket. And honestly, after that entire weekend, I mean, nothing changed. You flipped Miami and Notre Dame, and that was kind of primarily it. But yeah, if you're an Oklahoma Cedar fan, that's round 1 matchup. Alabama returning to Norman. It will be the 3rd time in 2 years that Sooners and Tide are playing. 2nd time in Norman. In a rematch of that, tight, incredible game in November. So there you go.
Mhm.
Um,
I think like taking a step back, there was the fan in me really excited to see Notre Dame. Like, I really wanted to play Notre Dame. We talk about our old vengeance and the brands playing against each other. It's a new shiny fun team that's not someone we've already played. But for the chance to win, I really do think that we have a better chance to win versus Alabama. Do I think Alabama's a better team than Notre Dame? Yeah. But do I think that we match up better versus Alabama in this team? Absolutely. We've already had the recipe for making Ty Simpson extremely uncomfortable and something we really hadn't seen this season. We put it out there, and I think that this Alabama offense isn't what we thought it is, and I think this defense could really bully them. And I think if we played Notre Dame, Bobby, I think there's a chance that Notre Dame, just for the sheer fact that they're so talented on the offense side of the ball, they might put up 24 plus, and I don't know if our offense could have kept up with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Um, I see where you're coming from. I just don't like the idea of playing a team with tape on you and playing a team that, we've seen what Oklahoma's path to victory is. You know it. And I think that's there's something tough about that. There's something tough about, it's the playoff. Like, you should be motivated regardless. I don't like having, the what would you call it? The bulletin board material, post game, spitting on the Alabama logo and all that. Like, I'd just rather not have that element at all. And it's just tough. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I think there's obviously some motivation there. And I don't know. I think it's just maybe a little bit anticlimactic. I know maybe that, like, that shouldn't be what it's all about. You should just pick the right teams. But there's something about just having a rematch against a team that you already beat. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it.
Yeah, it's all it is. It's just like, it's just a little disappointing, I think. Really, I
Yeah.
think that's the big.
No, for sure. But at the end of the day, what a good position we're in to be disappointed about being in the playoff, or not it being in the playoff, but being
I'm not
disappointed about our matchup.
Yeah, I'm
champagne
very
problem.
excited, but I think I'm just getting a little bit. I think I'm just getting a little bit greedy here.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. But oh well, I don't know. Any final thoughts on the CFP before we wrap this thing up?
I'm proud of what they did putting in Miami. I just don't like the way that it happened. I think that the reality of this ranking should have been Miami, if they're in, should be 9 over Alabama. And I just don't like this whole politicking it out, having to put people in certain places and making it where they can answer it easier to the public. They make their decisions based off of how can they answer the question the easiest rather than who's truly the top 12 teams in this playoff. And I just don't like that.
Yeah, it really complicates the whole thing. And I think that's just it's tough. It's tough, and it's, I suppose, just reality on it. But kind of need to figure out a better system. That's, I think, without a doubt. But we'll see how it goes. So
yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna probably spam refresh Twitter for the next hour, trying to figure out what's the schedules of these games.
Yeah,
because I'm sure they'll figure it out pretty quickly. Just hypothesizing on it. Obviously might not be the best content just because by the time y'all are listening, y'all are going to already know. But I think that playing Notre Dame, we could have easily been slotted into the Friday night slot. This Oklahoma-Alabama game, I think, based off all the quarterfinals, I think could be the primetime Saturday game.
Yeah. It's really not that great of a first round slate. Obviously, you have the 2 G5s in there. In terms of the best, it's the best matchup, I think. So, yeah, no, I think it's going to be the night game, either Saturday night or Friday night. And I'm intrigued to see how it all shakes out. That's kind of the big one.
Yeah. So the TNT or ABC, that's where we'll end up.
Yeah, and you kind of have to imagine they'll give it to the ABC on Friday night. Just because ABC, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. I feel like, but looking at the rest of the quarterfinal games, you see the JMU Oregon game. How excited are you for that one? Meh, not as excited for that one. Yeah. How excited are you for Ole Miss Tulane?
Not really.
Not really. Yeah. I text saying in Miami. I think that now that is between OU, Alabama, and Texas A&M and Miami. I think those are the ones fighting for who's going to be Friday and who's going to be Saturday night.
You're essentially calling. Do you want this to be it, or do you want this to be it on Saturday night?
Now that I've thought about it, Bobby, I do think the double SEC matchup does make sense to be at the ABC Friday night game.
Yeah. And this is the first time we've seen the TNT game actually be a late game. Because last year it was the 2 early slots. So it's weird that they have a like kind of desired place. I don't know. And I don't know what TNT, or sorry, TNT doesn't matter in this one. What ABC, values more. Prime spots or, being on your main network. And I think it's probably the main network is the biggest thing. But you hope it's a night game for sure. Like, my God, you hope it's a night game.
Yeah, I think we could just lock it in. It's going to be the Friday, the more I think about it. Yeah, but I mean, that's still going to be fun. I think a Friday night, it's going to be Christmas break either way for the kids. So like screw it for the student section and all that stuff. It should still be an electric environment. People, get ready. Talk to your bosses now. Like, make sure you're off work early.
Get them PTO request early. But so there it is. Oklahoma and Alabama. Winner goes to the Rose Bowl. That is OU's destination in the college football playoff. And we'll be back to talk about this more in depth at some point in time. But until then, Jameson, thank you for popping on this emergency reaction podcast. Hope you all have a great one. Boomer Sooner, everybody. And happy holidays.